So, Elle, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jessa.
I'm really excited about this topic. I've never had anybody approach me before about this topic for the show, so this is exciting. So, pole
Yes,
dancing.
yes, we're out here.
I mean, I have heard of people do it, like offering pole dancing classes and stuff. So I think this is really interesting. So I'm curious. I
Mhm,
mean, maybe it's obvious what pole dancing is, but
mhm.
how do you think about it? Is there anything you want to say about what it is or what it means? Or
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, pole dancing has its origin in the strip club, and basically, many strippers started to realize that they could start teaching these skills, mostly to other strippers at first, to kind of help and really when they were learning the skills, it wasn't really for the clients, it was for themselves, just to have something to do, something fun to kind of play with during their shifts, and started to become really popular to civilians as well. And it really kind of took off with Sheila Kelly. She was an actress in a movie, Dancing at the Blue Iguana. I don't know if you've seen
oh,
it. It's from the
I haven't seen it. No.
yeah, it's from the 90s. She played a stripper in the movie and she learned from strippers and she realized, oh, wow, this has been a really therapeutic exercise for myself as well. So she started a whole branch of studios and it's kind of grown since then. It's gotten very popular, I'd say, in the last 5 or so years. And it has a bunch of different techniques to it. I'd say most people come to pole dancing from like a fitness background, like I'm just looking for a fun way to work out. But my corner of the pole dancing world is about embodiment, rediscovering your sensuality, getting in touch with, and I use the term femininity here in like a non-gendered way, of course, but getting in touch with that kind of sensual side and reconnecting to the five senses. Sorry, it's my dog
That's okay.
bumbling around back there. But yeah, that's kind of the take I take on it. And I've just seen this practice become so meaningful for everyone, civilians and sex workers alike, to kind of what is it like to move for myself and find pleasure for myself in dancing. And I think the taboo of the pole actually helps a little bit. It's a little bit rebellious, and I think people kind of are drawn to that as well.
It's interesting because I guess I would have thought when I've heard about these pole dancing classes, I've thought fitness, right? But you said therapeutic, which
Hmm.
is, could you say a little bit more about that? I mean, you said getting in touch with sensuality, but therapeutic toward what? Like,
Yeah.
what's the healing that people might bring into this experience? The healing
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, and of course it's going to depend on what studio you go to and who the teacher is and things like that. But with my students, what I found is a bigger sense of empowerment, like stepping into themselves. I think it's partially becoming physically stronger because pole, depending on what you're doing, it does require strength. It does require knowing where your body is in space. And so they feel more physically empowered. And maybe most of my clients, I would say, are people who come from oppressed backgrounds, women, femmes, gender diverse, most people are queer, queer affiliated or allies. And so it's the first time that they've been allowed to like kind of take up space in a way that's just for them and not about how other people view them. And
Hmm.
maybe it starts that way. They come in thinking like, oh, I'm going to get strong. I'm going to get fit. It's going to look really cute on Instagram. But then they realize, oh, it's actually more fun if it's just for me. And I don't
Mm.
even care what it looks like. And I get to take up space and I get to feel strong and I get to do this thing that everyone said, that was told me to be small, take up as little space as possible, don't cause a fuss. And now I actually am doing this in a supportive space with other people. Can be really, really game changing for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So the empowerment piece of that, right?
Hmm.
I'm imagining, I haven't done this yet.
Yes,
So,
yes.
um, I'm imagining there might be something around body acceptance too. Like I don't
Yes.
know if how much of this is how people are dressed in this whole thing, but you're
Mhm.
probably not in a winter parka or sweats, right?
Right. Well, sweats are actually really common,
Okay.
but a parka would be tough to move around. Also, being in New Orleans, it's still 80 degrees here right now, so no one's in a winter parka. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say, and that's also part of it too. So like you get to pick kind of how to express yourself, and so some people dance in sweats and socks, some people dance in bikinis, some people put on heels, some people don't. Some people get to play with their gender identity through dance. It's a even there aren't that many straight cis men in the pole dancing world, but even the ones that are will wear heels and like kind of have fun like playing with different outfits, corsets and things like that. So they do get to play that. So you can kind of wear whatever you want. And body acceptance is a big part of it because we always kind of joke in the pole dancing world. Everybody kind of starts in like leggings and a t-shirt, and then the longer you dance, the less clothes you wear because the more you
Right.
just like what I do is so cool. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. Like, it doesn't matter what I look like. I can wear a bikini even if I'm in a larger body and like still just have a great time. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a big part of it.
I should have asked you this first.
Mhm.
How did you get into this? Like, what has drawn you to this work? Why is this something you're passionate about?
Yes. So in 2011, I graduated from undergraduate with my psychology degree, and I was working in San Francisco. And it was, my first time working full-time hours, and it was a lot. I was working at UCSF with people living with HIV and AIDS, so it was a pretty intense job. And I was looking for something to like de-stress at the end of the day, and a Groupon slid into my email that was like, "Not your mom's fitness," and I was like, "Okay, what's that?" Um, so I went to the class, and at the end, it was a basic beginners class. It was really fun. But at the end, the instructor did a demo dance of what I now know is basically just level one things. Like nothing was fancy. It was all very simple movements, but the way she was so present and in her body and commanded our attention, and it was so sensual. I'd never seen someone in a female body inhabit movement like that wasn't for the
Mm,
male gaze. Especially in
mm,
2011, back then it was Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears. It was very male gaze oriented. So it's the first time I'd seen someone do something just for her. And I saw her and I was like, oh, I got to learn how to do that. Like, I
mm.
don't know what she just did, but I got to learn. um, and especially at the same time, working with people living with HIV and AIDS and hearing about their struggles with their sensuality and feeling guilt and shame around their sexuality. And I think so many of us, even who don't have HIV, feel those feelings around sensuality and sexuality in this country. So it was kind of at the same time I was learning those two things and seeing like, oh, this could be an avenue to kind of recover those things that were kind of taken away from us or shamed away from us.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So I'm getting a beautiful picture in my mind about the empowerment and the body acceptance. Could you say a little bit more about how it's an avenue to connect to our sexuality or learn more about that? Or what kind of discoveries do you see people have
Yeah.
in the process?
Yeah. So I'd say it's going to depend the person. And again, it's going to depend the class. And the style of pole dancing I do is not very tricks based. So if people are picturing pole dancing, they're probably picturing like the tricks you see at the Super Bowl and things like that. And that certainly can be part of embodiment, but it's hard if you're 20 feet up in the air to check out. Like you kind of have to stay, which is it's a great mindfulness exercise. You have to
Yeah.
stay present in the moment. But really more of the kind of finding that flow, that kind of creative flow happens more on the floor and what we call low flow. So feet
Okay.
are on the ground, you're spinning, maybe you're on the ground, but a chair, but you're always kind of grounded on the floor. Um, so I would say for that, it can be any number of things. I'd say for a lot of people, it's finding out what the message that they want to say is and how to say it through movement, which if you think about sex and physical intimacy, that's kind of a piece of that as well. So it requires a process of checking in with yourself. Okay, how am I feeling today? What do I want to express today? What kind of need do I have? And then how do I stay in touch with my body to express that? You can see how that would be helpful with a partner to have those skills as well, and also feeling more confident and empowered to communicate and tell people what you need. And we touched on too, like the costumes of it all, the characters. I think people get to explore different things, and we'll do different prompts. So for instance, we'll do a prompt for a freestyle class I teach where like maybe you'll restrict a hand, like we'll kind of tie our hand up with a scarf or like put a hand behind our back or something. And people will be like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. Like I'm noticing I like playing with restriction. Like what does this mean? So it kind of gives them some material to go process or think
Mm,
about in the group as well too, but even more on their own. I find with embodiment, it I always say kind of joke that it's a grower, not a shower. Like over the week, you start to kind of like process the experience and like, oh, what does that mean? I'm starting to make sense of it more so than in the moment itself.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean, you're each time you're talking, you're sort of leading to my next question, which is the connection to better sex. And again, you've already spoken some about that. Is there more you see in terms of this embodied movement, the sensual movement that really adds to sex?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say specifically for the clients I work with who tend to be tend to be or assigned female at birth or gender nonconforming, many of them have trauma experiences, whether sexual assault or attachment trauma. So it's really the first time in their lives where they've kind of broken the narrative on that and seen what else they're capable of in a safe way. Like it builds slowly. We're not going to like throw someone in on the first day and be like, bikini, heels, 8-inch heels, like go. So it builds really slowly. So I think that's probably the first piece, is just realizing that it's okay to be a sensual or sexual person. Um, and it's not only is it okay, it's encouraged, and I have support in doing that. And everyone's showing up with their own version of what sexy is, and they're all amazing. So I really encourage my students to watch everyone else in the class. I really try for people to put their phones down because, in this day and age, we're all on our phones all the time. I'm like, I think we forgot what it's like to be in a room with someone who's just like very simply moving. Again, nothing is crazy here. It's just
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
standing there and breathing and like seeing it and being like, oh wow, being around other people is beautiful. It's mesmerizing, even if they're not doing much. So I'd say that's a big part of it, is learning how to like play, rest, observe, be in the moment. Connecting to the five senses is a big part of it as well, which can be really helpful for staying present in sex, obviously. Um, so I think that's the baseline of it, is getting to know yourself better, internally especially. And then
Hmm.
I'm saying, of course, externally communicating, knowing what you want, feeling more confident asking for it. Um, and you've got great upper body strength, so that helps with sex as well, sometimes for some positions, right?
It also
Yeah.
seems like learning to explore this for yourself, like you said, instead of for the
Mhm.
male gaze. Like, how can I connect with this? Like, when we're in sex, it's not just for our partner. So, like, how do we show up and
Yeah.
do this for ourselves, right? What are we getting out of this and what do we need?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Hmm.
So, you're a sex therapist. I'm curious
Hmm.
about the intersection here. Like, how how does
Yeah.
that inform how you're teaching, or what do you take from your pole dancing class teaching
Mhm.
work into sex therapy? I mean, yeah, I'm real curious about the intersection here.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself, to be honest with you, because licensing requirements and things like that, and like, okay, what can fit here, what can fit there. So I kind of look at it as a little bit of a spectrum, where
Mm-hmm.
on one side I have sex therapy, which is more, talk centered, talk therapy based, couples and individuals and things like that. And then all the way over here is like pole dancing, like people who are coming in for more of, I almost call it even sensual embodiment, because it's more like embodying your inner sensuality to me than like pole dancing. And then in the middle, I have like some somatic sex therapy trainings I'm working through. So kind of like, where can we meet in the middle
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of those things? Yeah, but I almost consider pole dance like expressive arts therapy, to be honest.
Right, right.
Mhm. Yeah. So for those listening, expressive arts therapy is a type of therapy that uses creative mediums, dance being one of them, of course, to help you kind of express and process thoughts, feelings, and things like that.
Does that mean, I mean, do you imagine a day where this could be part of your sex therapy practice? Like, is it,
I hope
it's an
so.
expressive arts therapeutic modality that you,
I hope so. I hope
that
so.
would be so
I'm
cool.
right, and I'm really working on that right now, looking into it, because it's the thing about living in Louisiana. We do not have the most progressive state board, so trying to figure out how I could make that work in a way that wouldn't ping them
Yeah.
to come give me an attitude about that, because that would definitely be the dream, is to have that as an offering, of course, like traditional talk therapy as well too, but to have that be an offering for people who need that, because it is something I see as being a pole dancer, is there's such a need for more support around mental health, relationships and things like that in pole dance, because when you work with bodies, you work with trauma, we say. So if you're moving in space, that will bring things up for people, whether it's yoga, pole,
Right, right.
soccer, whatever, right? So I would love to be able to offer that and like have more support for folks in that arena as well.
Yeah. Although I imagine you could also just do it as how you promote your embodied sensual movement work as
Hmm.
a little deeper and more therapeutic, a little bit more, it's not about the tricks, it's about the healing and the potential.
Yes, that's where I'm at right now. It's kind of a coaching
Yeah.
side thing. Yeah, right now,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep them separate. But I would love for that to be an option one day, just to
Yeah.
have that, because I do think it'd be really helpful.
So what I mean, you talked a little bit about your it's a lot of queer or femme people, but what kind of people
Mhm.
are drawn to pole dancing in general, do you think? Like, who's showing up for this stuff these days? Everybody or
Yeah, I'd say mostly women or people assigned female at birth, certainly some femmes or non-binary folks. I'd say, but overwhelmingly women. Pole did have an unfortunate reputation of being very white and privileged for a long time, which is funny because it came from the clubs, which is not necessarily white privileged folks. It's a lot of trans folks and women of color, but it kind of got that reputation. So there's been some some changes in that, been more outreach, especially since like 2020. I'd say in the last 4 years, people have really expanded. The studios here are pretty diverse. New Orleans is pretty diverse though. So we are lucky to have a pretty diverse group of folks in terms of race, age, even. So there's some really famous pole dancers who are more on the trick space side, who are in their 70s, 60s and 70s. So really anyone. For the most part, adults, but even there's pole dancing for kids classes. They're not sexy or
Right,
sensual.
right, right.
They're circusy, more like a circus class. But yeah, I would say pretty much it's a pretty wide scope of folks, I would say. Does tend to be more female, as not very many cis straight men. But if there's like a couples class, we'll get some of those coming in as well too, which is always really fun. And then they
Oh,
get a newfound appreciation for what their girlfriends are doing every week. They're like, oh, this is really hard. You're like,
what an
yeah.
interesting idea. Couples class. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about trust building. Yes. And communication
Right,
skills.
right, right. So
Yeah.
for anybody listening who's like intrigued, like, oh, this sounds like a cool thing to explore, how do you recommend people find a place? I mean, if they're not in New Orleans to come to your studio, what kind of things should they be looking at? What questions do they ask? How do they find something
Mhm.
that meets these needs?
Yes, yeah. So they're welcome to reach out to me on Instagram, first of all, if they want. I'm embodied L, embodied underscore L on Instagram, and people are welcome to message me, and I can ask. I know a good amount of the studios in the country, but not all of them. I would say if you're looking for a studio in your area, look at the way they market. Is going to be really important. Like, what are the messages they're giving in their marketing? Is it all thin white women doing tricks? That's going to be one thing versus more body diversity, racial diversity, just a diversity of classes. Who are their teachers? Are their teachers all a certain kind of person? Are they a variety of different people? Um, if you're looking for a class that's more in the embodiment sphere, there's not as many of us, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, but you would look for something that's more like called a low flow class or a floor work class, something like that, where it's more about connecting with your body and learning to dance rather than learning the more trick space thing. But most studios are going to have you do an intro class to start anyway. So that will kind of help you get a feel for the studio, looking around at who the other people are in the class. And the instructor should be able to answer any questions about like making it a safe space. What do they do to do that for everybody? And see if you like their answers. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And I guess you could try more than one if you need to, if you're in a place that has more than one.
Yes.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you mentioned Instagram, but I really want to give you a chance to tell people how to connect with you, what you might have available. I don't know if you do any of this on like
Hmm.
online video classes or something, but anyway,
Yeah.
how to
Mhm.
what do you have for people?
Yeah, so on the coaching side, that's my Instagram, and I do coaching worldwide. You don't need a pole at home. If you have one, of course, that would be great if you want to learn to pole dance. But I've also helped people learn sensual embodiment on their couch, on the chair, on the floor. So whatever works for different folks. Also, I know people come with different injuries. Our bodies all have different stories. So I'm happy to adjust anything. And in fact, I have a couch class if anybody is curious to get the recording of that, if you just want to try it out and see. So you can find me there. And also my website for that is lhamilton.co. So ELLE, Hamilton, HAMILTON.co. And then for sex therapy and trauma therapy, I'm in Louisiana and Florida, and that would be groundedhealthnola.org. So that would be my website for that.
Cool. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes too. So that
Awesome.
people don't
Yes,
have
I
to
know.
try to write all this down.
Yeah, when they're driving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Jessa.